I have been sitting here thinking about this team, and honestly, the silence from the front office regarding the trade market is becoming deafening. Something is developing with the Carolina Panthers that could finally shake up everything before we head into training camp. While the rest of the league has been making blockbuster moves, we have been ghosts, but the chatter behind the scenes suggests that might change soon. The more this situation evolves, the harder it is to ignore the potential shakeup. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your name and city in the comments. Let's get into it. The Carolina Panthers have remained surprisingly quiet throughout the 2026 offseason, completely abstaining from the flurry of blockbuster trades seen across the rest of the league. While rival teams reshaped their rosters, our front office stood on the sidelines, avoiding the high-stakes wheeling and dealing that typically characterizes this time of year. As fans, we recall the excitement that surrounded the acquisition of Xavier Legette, who arrived in Charlotte with immense expectations to revitalize our receiving core. Since joining the team, he has struggled to find the consistent production that justifies his draft status, leaving many of us wondering if he can truly be the reliable weapon this offense requires. The reports circulating lately suggest that despite the silence, the door remains wide open for potential roster shakeups before training camp kicks off. We are hearing whispers of 5 specific moves that could drastically change our outlook, including trading Legette to the Philadelphia Eagles, where his skill set might finally thrive under their current system. This news hit our community like a cold shower because it underscores how far we still have to travel to become a legitimate contender again. It is difficult to digest the prospect of moving on from a recent high pick, yet the reality is that our depth chart desperately needs an infusion of talent, whether that means securing a reliable tight end like Cole Kmet or finding a dynamic back like Alvin Kamara to stabilize our running game. The emotional toll is evident as we weigh the disappointment of past failures against the hope for a sudden, bold pivot by management. We are craving a sense of urgency, and honestly, the thought of standing still while the rest of the NFL advances feels like a missed opportunity that we simply cannot afford to ignore as the preseason approaches. The truth is, our front office has remained surprisingly passive throughout this wild 2026 offseason, but the underlying pressure for change is mounting daily. We have seen other organizations pull the trigger on massive roster shifts, yet the Panthers continue to sit on their hands while the rest of the league evolves. Consider the situation with our defensive line depth, which has become a significant liability following Tershawn Wharton's discouraging string of poor performances and his concerning neck injury that has sidelined his progress. Behind closed doors, Coach Dave Canales and the front office are likely terrified that a single injury will collapse the entire unit, yet they hesitate to make a bold move like targeting Darren Payne. Payne is currently embroiled in a difficult contract standoff, and his arrival would provide the veteran stability we desperately lack. Historically, Carolina has been far too cautious when it comes to acquiring high-priced defensive anchors, a conservative approach that has frequently left us scrambling for answers mid-season. Adding a talent like Payne is exactly the kind of aggressive maneuver that separates championship contenders from mediocre squads. Looking at his salary demands, the cost is admittedly steep, but the alternative is watching our defensive front buckle under pressure week after week. It is a gamble, sure, but history shows that standing pat while your division rivals reinforce their trenches rarely ends well for a team trying to find its identity. The coaches know the defense cannot survive on potential alone, and frankly, we are tired of hearing about development when the reality is that we need proven production to compete. If the leadership truly wants to change the narrative surrounding this franchise, they must stop waiting for the perfect moment and start constructing a roster that can actually hold its own against the league best. While our front office has remained surprisingly quiet during this whirlwind offseason, the urgency for Dave Canales to solidify his roster has reached a critical boiling point. The truth is, we are sitting on a delicate foundation, and failing to address these glaring gaps before the first kickoff could result in a lost season before the leaves turn. Adding someone like Alvin Kamara or Darren Payne would immediately redefine our offensive versatility and defensive grit, shifting our salary cap priorities away from aging contracts toward high-impact playmakers. By moving pieces like Xavier Legette or Chuba Hubbard, we clear a path for younger talent like Chris Brazzell to finally find their footing. This roster shakeup directly impacts our ability to compete in high-stakes divisional matchups against the Falcons and Saints, where speed and consistency are the only currencies that matter. If we can secure a reliable target like Cole Kmet, we stop settling for stalled drives and start forcing defensive coordinators to respect the middle of the field again. These moves represent more than just trades. They are a calculated declaration that we are no longer satisfied with the status quo. By upgrading the trenches and finding a true workhorse, we effectively tighten our standing against the NFC South, turning those narrow losses from last year into the hard-fought wins required to sneak into the playoffs. It is time for us to stop watching the rest of the league make bold maneuvers from the sidelines. We have the draft capital and the necessity to act, and frankly, waiting for another team to take the initiative feels like a missed opportunity to build something truly formidable. We deserve a squad that is ready to go toe-to-toe with any opponent, and these specific roster adjustments provide the clearest, most logical path toward achieving that necessary transformation this autumn. The potential trade for Washington Commanders defensive tackle Darren Payne represents a bold gamble to stabilize our trenches. The upside here is substantial because Payne brings elite interior pass rushing skills to a unit currently hindered by injuries and inconsistent depth. By securing a proven disruptor, Dave Canales could finally give our defense the anchor it desperately needs to compete in a tough division. Conversely, the risk is significant due to the hefty financial commitment required to satisfy a player currently locked in a contract standoff. Taking on that kind of salary cap hit might restrict our flexibility to address other glaring roster holes during the season. Around the league, scouts and analysts are closely monitoring Washington under the direction of Dan Quinn, noting that their willingness to move veterans might hinge on how they prioritize long-term asset management over immediate production. Some insiders suggest that a trade of this magnitude would be a massive statement, signaling that Carolina is finished with rebuilding and ready to force the issue. The way I see it, this move is exactly the type of aggressive roster construction that separates championship contenders from mediocre franchises. While I understand the hesitation regarding the massive contract extension that would inevitably follow a deal, I believe that quality interior linemen are worth every penny in the modern NFL. We have spent far too long hoping for mid-tier players to develop, and it is time to prioritize established talent if we ever want to reclaim our status as a defensive powerhouse. Even if it costs us a high draft pick, the immediate upgrade to our defensive rotation provides an insurance policy for Tershawn Wharton and adds a veteran presence that our younger defenders sorely lack as they continue their professional growth under this coaching staff. The bottom line is that the front office is clearly prioritizing stability over high-stakes roster volatility, signaling a long-term plan under Dave Canales that avoids desperate gambles. We are entering this season with a steady, calculated approach, which should give us a sense of calm after years of constant, chaotic turnover. While the idea of landing stars like Darren Payne or Cole Kmet is certainly enticing, sticking to our current trajectory suggests the organization is finally valuing structural growth over quick fixes. You should feel encouraged, not restless, as this team demonstrates a newfound commitment to internal development and fiscal discipline. We are building a foundation that does not rely on short-sighted maneuvers, and that patience will serve us well once the regular season grind begins. It is a refreshing change of pace to see our leadership refrain from reactionary trades, even when the rest of the league is making headlines. We have the pieces in place to be competitive, and the growth of our young core remains the priority. The truth is that we are in a transition period where character and chemistry matter just as much as talent, and this deliberate pace allows us to identify who truly fits the culture we are building. Looking ahead, I am curious to hear your take on our roster construction. If you could handpick one of the players mentioned in this video to join our squad for the upcoming season, which specific acquisition would make the most significant impact on our win total? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Keep pounding, I'll see you in the next one.